It began with what appeared to be a simple housing request, quietly circulating through royal channels and dismissed by many as routine palace administration. But when Prince William reportedly learned who was being considered for Frogmore Cottage, everything changed. What followed was not a minor disagreement behind palace walls, but a direct clash over authority, legacy, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. And according to royal insiders, William's response left even senior courtiers stunned. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the discussion attracted little attention. Royal residences are frequently reassigned, reviewed, and managed through a complicated network of palace decisions that rarely become public knowledge. Yet reports began circulating through royal circles that Frogmore Cottage, one of the most talked about properties in recent royal history, was once again at the center of an unexpected conversation. This time, however, the name allegedly connected to the proposal immediately raised eyebrows among those familiar with the ongoing tensions surrounding the Sussex chapter of the royal story. According to palace sources, whispers emerged that King Charles was considering a new future for Frogmore Cottage. While details remained closely guarded, insiders claimed that Meghan Markle's mother had become linked to discussions surrounding the property's potential use. Whether the conversations were preliminary, informal, or more serious remains a matter of speculation. But what mattered was not the certainty of the proposal. It was the reaction it triggered the moment word reportedly reached Prince William. For William, Frogmore Cottage was never just another residence on a royal estate map. The property had become deeply symbolic over the years. It represented one of the most controversial chapters in recent royal history, tied to family divisions, public scrutiny, and difficult decisions that had reshaped relationships within the monarchy. To many observers, Frogmore had evolved into something larger than a physical building. It had become a symbol of royal accountability, responsibility, and the consequences of choices that affected the institution itself. Sources suggest William learned of the discussions through palace channels before any wider announcement could take shape. What surprised aides, according to several reports, was the speed of his response. Those familiar with royal operations claim there was little hesitation. Almost immediately, questions began emerging about the long-term implications of such a move, and what message it might send about the future management of royal assets. Behind closed doors, conversations reportedly shifted from routine administration to a much larger debate about principle. As whispers spread through palace corridors, senior advisors allegedly recognized that the issue was becoming something far more significant than a housing arrangement. What appeared straightforward on the surface was beginning to expose deeper disagreements about stewardship, symbolism, and the responsibilities attached to royal property. Some believed flexibility was necessary. Others reportedly argued that certain boundaries should remain firmly in place regardless of circumstance. The atmosphere gradually became charged with uncertainty. Every new rumor seemed to add another layer to the growing controversy. What had started as a quiet administrative discussion was rapidly evolving into an early test of influence between the present king and the future king. And while very few details had reached the public, those closest to the situation reportedly understood that the debate was no longer about convenience or accommodation. But the real controversy wasn't who might move into Frogmore Cottage, it was why William believed the proposal crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. To outsiders, Frogmore Cottage may appear to be just another royal residence, but within palace circles, it represents something far more significant. Long before its name became attached to royal controversy, Frogmore stood as a symbol of duty, continuity, and royal stewardship. And according to insiders, that history became the very reason William refused to stay silent. As reports surrounding the proposed use of Frogmore Cottage continued to circulate, attention quickly shifted away from the individuals involved and toward the property itself. For those unfamiliar with royal tradition, the debate may have seemed surprisingly intense. After all, Why would a single residence create such strong reactions among senior members of the monarchy? Yet according to palace observers, Frogmore's significance extends far beyond its walls. It occupies a unique place within royal history, representing generations of continuity, responsibility, and careful stewardship that many believe should never be treated lightly. Over the years, Frogmore has become connected to some of the most important transitions within modern royal life. Its name has repeatedly surfaced during periods of change, celebration, and controversy. As a result, many royal advisors reportedly view the property as more than simply another residence within the Crown's portfolio. Instead, it has evolved into a symbol of how royal assets are managed, protected, and ultimately passed from one generation to the next. That symbolic value, according to insiders, lies at the heart of William's concerns. Sources suggest the Prince of Wales has long held strong views regarding the stewardship of royal properties. Those close to palace operations claim he sees such residences as part of a broader institutional responsibility rather than personal family assets. From his perspective, decisions involving historically significant properties must be guided by long-term considerations rather than short-term convenience. Whether one agrees with that philosophy or not, insiders believe it helps explain why reports surrounding Frogmore immediately captured his attention. The issue became even more sensitive because Frogmore already carried the weight of previous controversies. For years, the property has been linked to public debate, family tensions, and difficult decisions that generated headlines around the world. Each chapter added another layer to its complicated story. As a result, royal advisors reportedly worried that any new decision involving the residence would inevitably be viewed through the lens of those earlier disputes. The past had never truly disappeared. Instead, it remained attached to Frogmore's identity, influencing every conversation about its future. As discussions reportedly intensified behind palace walls, concern began spreading among senior officials. Some insiders feared that the symbolism of the property was being underestimated. Others questioned whether enough consideration had been given to the broader implications of any change. What had initially appeared to be a straightforward administrative matter was evolving into a much larger debate about royal inheritance, institutional responsibility, and the preservation of tradition. At the same time, another question quietly emerged. If certain royal residences carry historic significance that extends beyond personal preference, who should ultimately determine how they are used? Should decisions rest solely with the reigning monarch? Or should future custodians of the institution also have a voice in matters that could affect the monarchy for decades to come? Those questions reportedly became increasingly difficult to ignore as conversations continued. And with every new discussion, the controversy seemed to grow less about Frogmore Cottage itself, and more about something much larger: the balance of authority within a changing royal family. As palace officials examined the proposal more closely, an even larger question began to emerge: who truly had the authority to decide Frogmore's future? For years, Prince William and King Charles have worked carefully to present a united front. Yet insiders claim this issue created rare tension between father and son. What began as a property discussion quickly evolved into a deeper disagreement about royal responsibility, public perception, and the protection of the institution itself. As conversations surrounding Frogmore Cottage intensified, reports began suggesting that two very different perspectives were emerging within the highest levels of the royal family. On one side stood King Charles, a monarch often described as pragmatic, experienced, and determined to manage difficult family situations without creating unnecessary public conflict. On the other stood Prince William, increasingly viewed as a future king focused on long-term institutional stability and the preservation of boundaries that he believes protect the monarchy itself. While neither side publicly addressed the matter, insiders claim the disagreement quietly became one of the most closely watched internal discussions in recent memory. According to palace sources, King Charles allegedly viewed the situation through a practical lens. Years of family disputes had already placed enormous strain on royal relationships, and some advisors reportedly believed a flexible approach could help avoid further tensions. From this perspective, discussions about Frogmore were less about symbolism and more about finding workable solutions to complicated circumstances. Those familiar with the king's approach suggest he has often preferred compromise where possible, particularly when family considerations are involved. William, however, reportedly saw the issue very differently. Sources claim his concerns extended far beyond the immediate proposal itself. Instead, he focused on how such a decision might be perceived both inside and outside palace walls. The Prince of Wales has spent years preparing for the responsibilities that await him, and insiders suggest he has become increasingly sensitive to decisions that could influence public confidence in the institution. To William, every major choice carries consequences that stretch far into the future. As a result, what initially appeared to be a simple administrative matter gradually evolved into a broader debate about principle. Advisors reportedly found themselves caught between competing viewpoints. Some argued that flexibility demonstrated strength and confidence. Others believed consistency was essential for maintaining credibility. With each discussion, the disagreement became less about one property and more about the values that would guide the monarchy moving forward. Palace speculation soon reached extraordinary levels. Staff members reportedly began whispering about growing tensions behind closed doors. Royal commentators questioned whether the issue represented an isolated disagreement or an early glimpse into how father and son might approach leadership differently in the years ahead. Every rumor added fresh intrigue. Every new report seemed to deepen the mystery. What made the situation especially significant was the rarity of such disagreements becoming visible, even indirectly. For years, Charles and William had worked diligently to project stability during periods of extraordinary change. Their partnership was widely viewed as essential to the monarchy's future. Yet, according to insiders, Frogmore Cottage unexpectedly became the focal point for a larger conversation about responsibility, stewardship, and the difficult balance between family loyalty and institutional duty. As discussions reportedly grew more intense, it became increasingly clear that William was not simply challenging a proposal. He was defending an idea, one that he believed would shape the monarchy long after the current controversy faded from memory. The debate had moved beyond personalities, beyond practical considerations, and beyond short-term solutions. Yet William's objections were about far more than optics. They were rooted in a principle he believed the monarchy could not afford to abandon. According to royal observers, this was the moment Prince William stopped acting merely as heir and began acting as guardian. Sources suggest he viewed Frogmore not as a private family asset, but as part of a larger royal trust. And once that belief took hold, compromise became increasingly unlikely. As the debate surrounding Frogmore Cottage continued behind closed doors, insiders began describing a noticeable shift in William's approach. This was no longer simply a concerned son offering his opinion during a family discussion. According to palace sources, William increasingly viewed the situation through the lens of his future responsibilities. The question was no longer what solution might be easiest in the present. The question had become what precedent would be left behind for the future. And for William, that distinction reportedly changed everything. Those familiar with the Prince of Wales's thinking claim he has spent years preparing for the day when he will inherit not only a crown, but also the enormous responsibility that comes with protecting the institution itself. Every decision, every tradition, and every royal asset carries significance beyond the individuals involved. Sources suggest William believed Frogmore Cottage belonged within that category. To him, it represented part of a larger royal legacy that must be managed with consistency, caution, and a clear sense of purpose. As a result, his position reportedly became increasingly firm. Advisors close to the future king allegedly supported the view that royal residences should never be treated as ordinary family properties. Their importance extended beyond convenience or personal preference. They carried symbolic value tied to public trust, royal continuity, and the careful stewardship expected from those who serve the crown. The more these arguments were discussed, the more difficult compromise reportedly became. According to insiders, William's confidence also appeared to grow throughout the controversy. What began as concern gradually evolved into conviction. Palace observers suggest he became determined to draw a clear boundary regarding how historically significant royal assets should be managed moving forward. Whether others agreed with his position or not, there was little doubt that he viewed the issue as a matter of principle rather than politics. That determination reportedly began influencing the broader conversation. Senior advisors who initially viewed the matter as an administrative challenge started discussing its symbolic implications. Questions emerged about precedent. Questions emerged about accountability. Most importantly, questions emerged about what message the monarchy would send if certain boundaries appeared flexible during moments of pressure. The debate was expanding far beyond the walls of Frogmore Cottage. Sources claim palace insiders increasingly described William's stance as resolute. There was a growing sense that he was thinking several steps ahead, focusing not only on the immediate controversy, but on how future generations might interpret decisions made today. To supporters, this demonstrated leadership. To critics, it risked creating unnecessary tension. Yet regardless of perspective, momentum appeared to be shifting steadily toward William's position. As the days passed, speculation intensified. Every rumor suggested the balance of influence within the royal family was evolving. The controversy was becoming a reflection of something much larger than property management. It was revealing how the future king intended to approach questions of stewardship, authority, and institutional responsibility. And according to many observers, that realization carried consequences far beyond the immediate dispute. But while William was making his case behind closed doors, the wider implications of the dispute were only beginning to surface. As whispers spread through royal circles, the disagreement reportedly became one of the most discussed topics among palace staff. What had started as a housing proposal now carried implications for succession, authority, and the monarchy's future identity. And every passing day seemed to increase the pressure on both sides. By this stage, the Frogmore controversy had evolved far beyond the question of who might occupy a royal residence. According to insiders, conversations were now centered on something much larger: the balance of influence between the reigning monarch and the future king. Palace staff reportedly watched developments with growing fascination, aware that the outcome could reveal important clues about how major decisions would be handled in the years ahead. What had once seemed like a routine matter was rapidly becoming a symbol of the monarchy's future direction. As speculation intensified, public perception reportedly became an increasingly important factor. Royal commentators began discussing the broader implications of the dispute, while palace advisors quietly weighed the potential consequences of every possible outcome. Some believed flexibility would help ease tensions. Others argued that consistency was essential to maintaining public confidence. The debate reflected two very different visions of how the institution should navigate sensitive situations in a rapidly changing world. Sources claim the pressure on King Charles steadily increased as discussions continued. On one side stood the practical realities of managing family relationships. On the other stood growing concerns about precedent, symbolism, and long-term stewardship. Every new report seemed to reinforce the sense that this decision would be viewed as more than a simple property arrangement. It had become a test of priorities. At the same time, William's influence reportedly became more visible than ever before. Palace observers suggested that his arguments were resonating with an increasing number of advisors who viewed the issue through the lens of institutional protection. What impressed many insiders was not simply his determination, but his willingness to remain consistent despite mounting pressure. The future king appeared focused on a single principle, and according to reports, he showed little sign of backing away from it. Then, after weeks of uncertainty, palace insiders claim a decisive turning point finally arrived. While official details remain closely guarded, reports suggest William's position ultimately carried enormous weight during the final stages of discussion. Gradually, signs began emerging that momentum had shifted. What once appeared to be a contested proposal was now increasingly viewed as unlikely to proceed. Sources suggest the proposal was ultimately halted, bringing an end to one of the most closely watched internal royal disputes in recent months. While no formal explanation emerged, many observers interpreted the outcome as a significant victory for William's vision of royal stewardship. King Charles reportedly accepted the result, recognizing both the sensitivity of the issue and the strength of feeling surrounding it. Frogmore Cottage would remain tied to the priorities that William and his supporters believed best served the institution's future, yet the true significance of the episode was never limited to a single property. The controversy revealed a future monarch increasingly confident in his role, increasingly willing to defend his principles, and increasingly prepared to shape the direction of the crown. What began as a disagreement over housing ended as something far more consequential, a glimpse into the leadership style of the man who will one day inherit the throne. But the lasting significance of the episode extended far beyond Frogmore Cottage itself. Many royal watchers believe this episode revealed something far more important than a disagreement over property. It offered a glimpse into how Prince William may choose to govern when his own reign begins. And for supporters, the message seemed unmistakable. What appeared to be a dispute about a cottage was, according to many observers, really a battle over something much larger: legacy, responsibility, the question of who protects the monarchy when difficult choices must be made. And by the end of the controversy, the answer seemed clearer than ever. As the headlines gradually faded and public attention shifted elsewhere, the deeper significance of the Frogmore dispute continued to resonate throughout royal circles. For many commentators, the controversy served as an early preview of William's leadership style. Throughout the debate, he reportedly remained focused on long-term stewardship rather than short-term convenience, emphasizing the belief that royal assets carry responsibilities that extend beyond any single generation. Whether supporters agreed with every aspect of his position or not, many viewed his approach as evidence of a future monarch increasingly prepared to place institutional priorities at the center of his decision-making. The episode also highlighted broader tensions that continue to shape the modern monarchy. Behind every discussion about residences, titles, or responsibilities lies a larger challenge: how to preserve centuries of tradition while adapting to changing expectations. According to palace observers, William's reported stance reflected a growing commitment to protecting the structures and principles he believes give the institution stability. In that sense, Frogmore Cottage became less a physical location and more a symbol of the difficult choices that future leaders of the monarchy will inevitably face. Public reaction further amplified the importance of the moment. Royal commentators debated whether the outcome represented a necessary defense of tradition or simply another chapter in an already complicated family story. Yet amid those competing interpretations, one theme appeared repeatedly. The controversy reinforced William's growing role within the institution. He was no longer viewed solely as the heir waiting for his turn. Increasingly, he was being seen as an active participant in shaping the monarchy's future direction. Perhaps that is the lesson many insiders believe will endure long after the details of the dispute are forgotten. Boundaries matter, stewardship matters. The decisions made today can influence public trust for decades to come. What seemed like a relatively minor disagreement ultimately became a reminder that the monarchy's greatest challenges often emerge not during grand ceremonies but during private moments when principles are tested. And in the end, the story was never really about Frogmore Cottage. It was about legacy. It was about responsibility. It was about the continuing effort to balance family loyalty with institutional duty. Because in the world of royalty, the most important battles are rarely about buildings, they are about the legacy those buildings represent. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.